We've got some breaking news to bring you now because William and Kate have broken their silence on the ongoing revelations in the Jeffrey Epstein files.
The Prince of Wales is about to begin his first visit to Saudi Arabia, and while there, a Kensington Palace spokesperson has just said the following: "I can confirm the Prince and Princess have been deeply concerned by the continuing revelations. Their thoughts remained focused on the victims."
Well, we can bring in our royal correspondent Rhiannon Mills, who's in Riyadh for us, so travelling there, of course, with Prince William. Rhiannon, what do you make of the statement?
So, look, you should not underestimate just how big this is. This makes William and Kate the most senior royals so far to comment since the latest release of those Epstein files. And yes, while the words may not be the sentiments that some people want them to make, the fact that they are saying they are deeply concerned about the latest revelations, the fact that those revelations, many of them relate to Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, William's uncle, but also the fact that he has also so far not commented. The fact that they realise that they, I think, had to say something. This, of course, has come from a palace spokesperson. But again, in many ways, they are repeating a line that we've already heard from the royal family, which is that we must think of the victims. This also is the first time we've heard anything publicly from William and Kate about Epstein, full stop. So that's why it is a big moment. And the fact that the palace have decided to put this statement out there before William has even landed here in Saudi, I think shows that they really knew they needed to get this out there, that people were going to keep talking about it. They had to get it out there if they were having any fighting chance of being able to focus on what's a really important diplomatic trip for him. But yeah, other senior members of the royal family have tried to avoid this topic over the last week. We know the King was shouted at during a walkabout in Essex last week. He didn't answer. Prince Edward was also asked about it in Dubai. He did give some kind of response, again saying think of the victims, and that does appear to be the royal family's line. We heard it back in October when Andrew was stripped of his titles and stripped of his home. But yeah, whether or not this is going to be enough to stop it distracting from William's trip to Saudi, we're going to have to wait and see over the next few days.
Rhiannon, if we step back from everything over the last few months, I'm just interested whether you sense from whether it's Kensington Palace or Buckingham Palace any regret that they didn't do more sooner. I was really interested last week. This is a sort of small point relative to, of course, the big steps that Buckingham Palace took last year. But all of a sudden, when the news flow got worse, his departure from his house in Windsor was sudden. It was on, we didn't have a departure date, and then all of a sudden it had happened. It kind of suggests there are areas where they could have gone further faster.
Look, I think there were, of course, mutterings that Andrew, they wanted to move him out of Royal Lodge on the Windsor estate as fast as possible. There were suggestions that was going to happen mid-February, but nothing had been confirmed. You may have seen those pictures of him waving at crowds out on horseback on the Windsor estate. I think the fact that the optics of that looked terrible in some ways did sort of force their hand to make that move for him out to Norfolk happen maybe sooner than he wanted to. But yeah, it's a really interesting question. Back in October, we did some polling with the public saying, do you think the King has done the right thing of stripping him of his title, stripping him of his home? And largely the public thought the King had done the right thing. Another question, though, did people think that they had acted quickly enough? Should they have done stuff sooner? And many people said, yeah, they probably should have acted sooner. But you have to remember, now we have a new monarch. For a long time, as we've seen this Epstein scandal unfold, it was Queen Elizabeth, Andrew's mother, who was monarch. We know that they had a close relationship. We know also it was a different time. There was a sense of hoping that they could avoid issues and people would then move on. But as we've seen with these latest files, this is not going away. And also those questions and the demands for Andrew to speak to the authorities just seem to be getting louder.